You walk into the grocery store, and there it is. A bag with a rustic label, a picture of oats spilling out of a wooden bowl, the word natural printed in a soft, trustworthy font. You put it in your cart because your brain has already made the decision for you. Granola means healthy. That is the story you have been told since the first health food boom in the 1960s. But here's the question almost nobody asks before pouring that bowl. What if the granola industry built its entire reputation on a lie that tastes like honey and oats? Because in 2025, a team of registered dietitians working with Consumer Reports tested more than 20 popular granola products against a simple set of standards. Low sugar, real protein, real fiber, clean oil, minimal processing. Most of the granolas on your grocery shelf right now failed. Not barely failed. Failed by a wide margin. Some of them carrying more sugar per serving than a package of Oreo cookies. That is not an exaggeration. That is a direct comparison made by a licensed dietitian analyzing a nutrition label next to a cookie label. And the granola lost. So today, we are going on an investigation. 10 granola brands that are quietly working against your health, dressed up in packaging designed to make you feel good about your choices. 10 brands that actually deliver on the promise granola made to you decades ago. But stay with me, because the order we reveal these matters. The worst offenders are not the ones you expect. The biggest surprise of this entire investigation is saved for the very end. 10 brands that actually deliver on the promise granola made to you decades ago. A cookie is universally understood as an indulgence. The order we reveal these in matters. Nobody buys Oreos. The worst offenders are not their body for the day ahead. And the biggest surprise of this entire investigation emotional map is saved for the very end. People pour it over yogurt. Think about how strange that is. Pack it into their children's lunchboxes. A cookie is universally understood as an indulgence. They are making the responsible choice. Nobody buys Oreos thinking they are fueling their body perception and reality is not an accident. Granola sits on the opposite. It is the product of decades of careful branding. People pour understanding it over how that gap was built. Pack it into their children's lunchboxes, step to closing it for good, and eat it specifically. Let's start with the belief almost everyone carries into the cereal aisle. That gap between perception and reality is not an accident. This idea took root in American culture in the 1960s and 70s. And understanding how that gap was associated with back to nature living, closing it for hippie communes, and homemade recipes made from everyone carries into the cereal aisle. For decades, that association stuck. Health food. Marketing departments. This idea took root in American culture in the 1960s somewhere between the 1970s kitchen, when granola was associated with back to nature living, granola hippie communes, and homemade recipes discovered that sugar and oil are what make oats clump that association into those satisfying crunchy clusters people love. Never let it go. The more clusters, somewhere between the 1970s kitchen and the 2020s factory line, granola changed. Manufacturers discovered that sugar and oil are what make oats clump together into those satisfying crunchy clusters people love. The more clusters, the more shelf appeal, the more sales. And the fastest way to build a cluster is sugar syrup and refined oil, baked and caramelized until it hardens. The healthier a granola looks, often the more binding agent it needed to get that look. Think of it like a movie set. From the front, everything looks polished, warm, complete. Walk around to the back, past the label, and you find the scaffolding holding the whole illusion together. Syrup, refined oil, and enough sugar to make the oats stick without falling apart in the bag. The clusters you love crunching on are not a natural byproduct of oats and honey sitting together. In most mass-market recipes, they are an engineered result, built the same way a construction crew pours concrete around a frame. This is where our countdown begins. Number 10 on our list of brands to avoid brings us to conventional Kellogg's granola lines, specifically their crunchy nut caramelized granola. On paper, it looks like an indulgent treat, and that is honest marketing, because nutritionally, that is exactly what it is. Independent nutrition reviews have flagged this product for its combination of high sugar, high salt, and calorie density, placing it closer to dessert than breakfast. The common belief is that a big-name cereal brand means quality control and nutritional balance. The hidden truth is that big-name brands optimize for taste and shelf life first, and health claims are often added afterward as marketing language, not as a formulation goal. This matters more than it seems, because a company the size of Kellogg's has the resources to formulate a genuinely balanced product if it chose to. The fact that a caramelized, dessert-level version exists on the same shelf as their more moderate offerings tells you something important. The company is not incapable of making a healthier granola. It is choosing, product line by product line, which version of the truth to sell you, and letting your own assumptions about the brand fill in the rest. Number 9 takes us to a category almost no one thinks to question: certain organic whole wheat granola cereals sold under trusted health food labels. One widely reviewed example contains raisins coated in added sugar, on top of cane sugar already built into the base recipe, along with modified cornstarch. The word organic on the front of the bag creates what nutrition researchers call a health halo, a psychological effect where one positive label makes a shopper assume everything else about the product is also good. Studies on consumer behavior have shown this halo effect repeatedly. People underestimate the calorie and sugar content of a product by a significant margin simply because the word organic or natural appears on the packaging. The hidden truth here is unsettling. Organic sugar is still sugar. Your body processes it identically to the refined version. Number 8 brings us to a specific and very telling case. A private label granola sold at a major national health food grocery chain, marketed under the store's own premium branding. Registered dietitians reviewing this product found it carried 15 grams of added sugar in a single half-cup serving, among the highest levels recorded in the entire granola category during that review. For context, the American Heart Association recommends a daily added sugar limit of 25 grams for women and 36 grams for men. That means one bowl of this granola alone could consume more than half of a woman's entire daily sugar allowance before she has eaten anything else that day. The emotional twist is the trust factor. This was not a bargain brand hiding in the back of the shelf. It came from a grocery chain built almost entirely on a health-conscious reputation. The brand people trusted the most became the one that betrayed that trust the hardest. Psychologists who study consumer trust call this the halo of the whole environment, not just the product. When every other aisle in a store reinforces a wellness identity, organic produce, supplement walls, juice bars, shoppers unconsciously extend that trust to every item on every shelf, including the ones that never earned it. The store itself becomes the marketing, and the granola simply rides along on a reputation it did nothing to deserve. But that's only the beginning. Number 7 on our list involves a category of protein-marketed granolas riding the recent hype protein trend. Several products branded around dark chocolate and added protein isolate have been flagged by nutrition reviewers as unhealthy despite the protein claim on the front label, because manufacturers frequently pair the added protein with equally high sugar content to preserve taste. This is a pattern nutrition researchers now call macro washing, layering one attractive number, in this case protein grams, on the front of a package to distract from an unattractive number, added sugar, buried on the back. Number 6 follows a nearly identical pattern with a widely available oats, apple, and cranberry granola marketed as Simply Made. Simply Made is not a regulated term. It carries no legal nutritional meaning. It is a phrase created entirely for emotional effect, and it works, because studies on food labeling repeatedly find that words like simple and clean increase purchase intent even when nutrition facts remain unchanged. Number 5 takes the investigation into ingredient chemistry, and this is where things get genuinely alarming. A significant share of mainstream granola brands rely on canola oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, or safflower oil to bind their oat clusters together. These are cheap, effective, and shelf-stable, which makes them attractive from a manufacturing standpoint. But these oils are high in omega-6 fatty acids, and research has connected excessive omega-6 intake, especially when it oxidizes during high-heat baking, to increased inflammatory markers in the body. Food scientists in this space describe seed oils as one of the most overlooked contributors to the chronic inflammation, quietly building in the modern diet. The scary part is that seed oils appear in the vast majority of conventional granola on shelves right now. It's hidden behind a single line item most shoppers scroll straight past. A 2020 review, published in the journal Circulation, offers a useful comparison point. Researchers found that swapping saturated fats like coconut oil for unsaturated oils generally improved cholesterol markers, which is exactly why many seed oils were embraced by the food industry in the first place. The complicating factor is what happens to those oils under high heat during baking. Repeated heating accelerates oxidation, Oxidized oils behave very differently in the body than the fresh oil sitting in a bottle on your kitchen counter. The oven that toasts your granola golden brown may also be quietly transforming the very fat meant to make it healthier. Number 4 is about a manipulation tactic hiding in plain sight: the serving size. Many granola brands list nutrition information for a serving size far smaller than what a real person actually eats. A package might claim only 8 grams of sugar, but that number is calculated for a quarter cup, roughly 2 tablespoons, an amount almost nobody measures out for breakfast. Nutrition analysts have demonstrated that when you recalculate sugar content at a realistic serving, some brands' true sugar intake triples. What looks like a moderate 8 grams becomes 15, 20, sometimes more, the moment you pour a normal human-sized bowl. This single tactic may be the most widespread deception in the entire category, because it is completely legal, fully disclosed, and almost universally ignored by shoppers who trust the front of package number without ever doing the math. Number 3 brings us to ultra-processing itself. Nutrition experts consistently recommend that healthy granola should contain no more than about 7 base ingredients: oats, nuts, seeds, a natural sweetener, and perhaps dried fruit. Several major grocery store granolas list closer to 20 ingredients, including gums, artificial flavoring compounds, and multiple forms of processed sugar working together. A longer ingredient list is one of the clearest, simplest red flags in all of food science, because every additional processed ingredient generally signals another layer of manufacturing designed to extend shelf life or manipulate texture, not to improve nutrition. Number 2 circles back to something almost poetic in its irony: Adeine fibers like chicory root, marketed aggressively as a health boost. Several brands now advertise inflated fiber numbers thanks to chicory root extract blended into the recipe. But nutrition scientists have raised real questions about whether isolated fiber additives like this provide the same metabolic benefits as fiber that occurs naturally inside whole oats, nuts, and seeds. It is a health claim built on a technicality: a fiber number that looks impressive on a label while offering uncertain benefit inside your actual digestive system. And number 1, the single most avoidable pattern found across almost every problematic granola brand in this entire investigation: the stacking of multiple red flags at once. I added sugar, refined seed oil, unrealistic serving sizes, and an inflated ingredient list, layered together under a package that still uses the words natural, wholesome, or artisan somewhere on the front. The real reason is even more shocking than any single ingredient. It is not that granola manufacturers are secretly evil. It is that the entire category evolved inside a food system that rewards shelf appeal, addictive crunch, and long shelf life over nutritional integrity. Almost nothing about food labeling law requires them to prioritize your health over your taste buds. Stay with me, because the biggest revelation of this whole investigation is still ahead. Here's the moment to pause and reset, because everything you just heard could easily leave you thinking granola itself is the enemy. It is not. The problem was never oats. Oats are one of the most well-researched whole grains on the planet, linked in study after study to improved cholesterol levels and better blood sugar regulation. The problem is what modern food manufacturing did to oats in pursuit of profit. And that distinction is exactly what makes the second half of this investigation so important, because hidden inside the same grocery aisle, sitting on the very same shelf as the worst offenders, are brands doing this correctly. Brands built by people who treated the health claim as a promise instead of a marketing slogan. Let's find out who they are, starting our countdown of the brands actually worth your money. At number 10, we look at Bare Naked, a brand that built its identity around minimal ingredient lists years before clean eating became a mainstream buzzword. Their standard recipes lean on real nuts and whole oats rather than syrup-heavy binding agents. It's giving them a comparatively lower sugar profile than most big box competitors. Though shoppers should still always check the specific flavor, since fruit and chocolate varieties can shift the numbers. What makes a brand like this worth mentioning at all is not perfection, it is consistency. Across most of their core lineup, the ingredient list stays short enough that you could read it out loud in one breath, which on its own eliminates most of the red flags nutrition experts warn about. Number 9 belongs to Purely Elizabeth, and specifically their grain-free product lines. Registered dietitians have repeatedly singled this brand out by name, praising its use of nutrient-dense seeds like sunflower. Hemp and chia, ingredients most people do not consume nearly enough of in a normal diet, because the brand sweetens primarily with coconut sugar in modest amounts. Some of its grain-free varieties land around only 5 grams of sugar per serving, a fraction of what many competitors carry. It is worth noting that not every product under the purely Elizabeth name performs equally well, which is exactly why the specific grain-free line, rather than the brand as a whole, earns the recommendation. Even the best brands can carry weaker products in their catalog. And reading past the logo to the individual item remains essential. Number 8 is Backroads, a smaller brand that has earned quiet praise from nutrition reviewers for using maple syrup and honey as its primary sweeteners, rather than refined cane sugar, keeping some varieties as low as 2 grams of added sugar per serving. They also offer grain-free formulations for shoppers managing blood sugar or following lower carbohydrate diets, without sacrificing the crunch factor that makes granola satisfying in the first place. The lesson embedded in a brand like this is simple but easy to forget. Sweetness does not have to come from a laboratory or a syrup drum. It can come from the same ingredients your grandparents used in the same modest amounts, and still deliver the exact flavor experience people expect from the category. Number 7 takes us to Kodiak, a brand that remarkably earned unanimous recommendation from 3 separate registered dietitians interviewed in a recent nutrition review, all naming it independently as the healthiest widely available granola brand on the market. Kodiak built its reputation on whole food ingredients, balanced protein content, and sugar levels that stay well under the 10-gram threshold. Dietitians consider the ceiling for a genuinely healthy option. When 3 experts working independently, without coordinating with one another, arrive at the exact same answer, that is not marketing working in the brand's favor. That is convergent evidence, the same kind of agreement scientists look for when confirming a result actually holds up under scrutiny rather than just sounding good in a press release. Number 6 is Magic Spoon's protein granola line, a newer entrant that nutritionists have highlighted for successfully doing what so many big brands only pretend to do, delivering real, substantial protein without leaning on a sugar spike to make the product palatable. It represents a shift in the category, proof that the high-protein trend can be executed honestly instead of used as a distraction technique. Compare this directly to number 7 on our avoid list, the dark chocolate protein granola that leaned on sugar to mask its formulation. Same marketing angle, same trending buzzword on the front of the bag, completely different execution behind it. The word protein tells you nothing on its own. It's only the full label, read in context, tells you which company is being honest about it. Number 5 belongs to Brekkie Mix, a brand that recent independent analysis covering more than 40 competitors identified as the only product to pass every single expert criterion simultaneously: added sugar, protein, fiber, oil quality, and overall ingredient integrity. Their recipes use extra virgin olive oil instead of seed oil, contain 0 added sodium, and land around 2 to 3 grams of added sugar per serving, a number so low it stands in stark contrast to the double-digit sugar counts common across the rest of the category. Calculated over the course of a full year, choosing a brand at this sugar level over a typical commercial granola eaten daily can mean avoiding several pounds of pure added sugar annually, without changing a single other habit in your diet. That is the kind of compounding effect nutrition experts talk about when they say small, repeated choices matter more than any single dramatic overhaul. Number 4 brings olive oil back into focus more broadly, because it turns out the choice of fat is just as important as the choice of sweetener. Nutrition researchers point out that olive oil delivers heart-healthy, monounsaturated fats and beneficial polyphenol compounds. And in a striking development, updated federal dietary guidelines released in early 2026 formally recommended olive oil over seed oils for the first time at a national policy level. Brands that made this switch years ahead of that guidance deserve real credit for reading the science before it became official. It is a rare case of the food industry getting slightly ahead of the regulators instead of lagging years behind them. And it shows that consumer pressure, expressed through purchasing decisions, can genuinely move a market before the law catches up. Number 3 is Go Raw's sprouted granola, standing out for an entirely different reason: the sprouting process itself. According to the brand, sprouting seeds before processing improves nutrient absorption and unlocks compounds that remain otherwise locked inside the raw seed. It represents a genuinely different manufacturing philosophy from the caramelized cluster factories dominating the rest of the market. Whether or not you personally prioritize sprouting as a health strategy, the underlying signal is worth paying attention to. A brand willing to change its entire production process around emerging nutrition science, rather than simply changing its label copy, is usually a brand worth trusting with the rest of its ingredient decisions too. Number 2 goes to smaller artisan and coconut crunch style producers who have built loyal followings specifically because their nutrition labels hold up to FDA scrutiny at every level, balancing whole ingredients with reasonable calorie counts instead of chasing the biggest, most decadent cluster possible. And finally, number 1, the biggest revelation of this entire investigation. It is not a single brand. It is a 5-point checklist that experts from Weill Cornell Medicine, the Cleveland Clinic, Consumer Reports, and the American Heart Association all converge on independently. 0 or minimal added sodium. Under 5 grams of added sugar per serving. At least 7 grams of protein. At least 4 grams of fiber. And a genuinely healthy fat source like olive oil rather than a refined seed oil. Any granola on any shelf, from any brand, famous or completely unknown, that satisfies all 5 of those numbers simultaneously has effectively passed the same test used by the nation's leading nutrition institutions. You do not need to memorize 10 brand names. You need to memorize 5 numbers. Flip the bag over and let the label tell you the truth the front of the package was designed to hide. That is the real twist hiding underneath this entire story. The grocery aisle was never rigged against you specifically. It was built to reward the brands willing to be honest and quietly punish the ones relying on a rustic font and the word natural to do the selling for them. Once you know what to look for, the deception collapses instantly. A 15-second glance at the nutrition label tells you more truth than the entire front of the package combined. And there is something almost hopeful buried in that fact. This was never a story about an industry too corrupt to fix. It was a story about information asymmetry. One side of the counter knowing something the other side did not. Every brand named in the second half of this investigation proves the fix was always possible. Ain't nothing about a 5-gram sugar limit or an olive oil base requires a miracle of food science. It requires a company choosing your long-term health over a short-term spike in how sweet a single bite tastes on a store sample table. The technology to do this correctly has existed the entire time. What was missing was the demand loud enough to make it the default instead of the exception. So here is the practical takeaway to carry with you the next time you stand in that aisle. Ignore the words wholesome, artisan, and clean. They mean nothing. Flip the bag. Check the serving size against what you would actually pour into a bowl. Look for sugar under 5 grams, protein above 7, fiber above 4, and an oil source you recognize as genuinely healthy. If a granola clears all 4 of those hurdles, it has earned a place in your cart. If it does not, no amount of rustic packaging should convince you otherwise. If this investigation changed the way you are going to shop this week, that is exactly what it was built to do. Let me know in the comments which brand on this list surprised you the most. Share this with the person in your life who swears their granola is healthy. And subscribe if you want the next investigation delivered straight to you before you make your next trip down the cereal aisle.